Hello again, my friends. In our last session, we explored the why, main motivations behind writing and publishing scientific papers. Now that we've laid that basic section, it's time to talk about the how. How do we actually structure a manuscript? So let's begin. Before you begin your work, I'd like to share some useful recommendations that are good to keep in mind before starting. The first thing you should do in research is read as many articles as possible in your field of interest. It is never too early to become a serious reviewer number 2. I recommend reading 2 to 3 articles related to your topic every day. You can start from the beginning of your research without relying on any AI tools like summarizers. Actually, while you will become familiar with these AI tools during this course, to truly understand the value of a research paper, you must read it in its entirety. Yes, I know reading the whole thing might sound like a chore, but trust me, there is no magic AI for actually understanding the content. So I emphasize, you must read the papers fully, no shortcuts. No shortcuts, my friends. Doing this will help you to identify the strengths and weaknesses of other people's works and will give you a broader perspective on your own. Reading a psychology or neuroscience article for the first time can be quite challenging, and most researchers write their papers for other specialists in the field, and it means that they often use specialized terminology and a specific writing style. Secondly, although we know that AI tools can assist us in writing, again, assist, not write, it is important to recognize that the best articles are those that have the most complex and challenging concepts in our field in the simplest language. I mean, even those who are not in these fields should be able to understand them. So learning how to read and write in English is an important aspect of scientific communication, and it's not just about grammar. Using the right words in the right places is equally important. Another piece of advice, once you've spent a considerable amount of time reading and the idea for your project starts to take shape in your mind, begin writing immediately. It doesn't have to be perfect at first. So putting your thoughts on paper or in a Word document will help you organize your ideas. And it will also help you to refine the scope and hypothesis of your research. Let's get down to the business of today's session. I mean, the anatomy of a research paper in psychology and neuroscience. Well, have you ever heard the term IMRaD? It is a widely used structure for scientific papers, standing for introduction. So we have introduction, methods, results, and discussion. So these sections actually form the backbone of research papers in many scientific fields, including ours. Here, I want to cover the general structure of a research paper, also known as IMRaD. My friends, a paper is like navigation through a landscape. So at the beginning, you who might be the writer or the reader, stand out here at the top of the viewpoint, seeing the overall picture of the topic. At this point in the paper, you are providing a broad context, a wider context of the problem, you are investigating, and the problems you are addressing and why it is important. Gradually, as you move forward down, your focus gets narrower, as you can see in this shape, and you are in the main objectives and hypotheses of your work. This section, my friends, overall is called the introduction section. Next, we enter the methods section, which is like stepping into the dense forest of your study. So here we have the forest of our study, where everything becomes detailed and precise. You explain the tools, you explain the methods, and the paths you followed here. And mostly the method sections in our field is divided into specific subsections that detail, for example, here we might have the participants of our study. We also have the tools used, for example, the materials and methods. We also have the procedure for what we have done. For example, the procedure of conducting the experiment. The participant section actually shows how many participants were involved, how they were selected, who they were, whether they were, for example, psychology students, individuals recruited from outside the university, or lab rats purchased from a facility, etc. The next subsection, also known as apparatus or materials, describes the tools such as cognitive tasks or questionnaires, the computer model, the screen size, and the overall experimental conditions. If you are using a questionnaire or cognitive task, it is better to refer to as materials. And finally, the procedure section outlines the experiment, detailing the protocols followed and the statistical features of the design. In specific cases, if a statistical method is used the statistical method is more advanced than common statistical techniques, it is included in another section which is called the design section. Well, next we will reach the results sections. Actually here we have the results section of our paper. And this is where you present the treasures found within that dense forest of methods. Here you don't explain the plan or hypothesis anymore. You simply present what you have discovered. And this section presents descriptive statistics that summarize the data. Inferential statistics also are provided to assess whether the differences observed between different experimental conditions are random or not. And so both types of statistics, descriptive and inferential, are important as they help the audience to understand the outcome of an experiment. And as you know, this section also has figures or tables to describe and summarize the data. My friends, it is important to note that in the results section, the choice of specific words plays an important role. We will discuss this issue in detail in the subsequent sections of the course. And finally, I must say that the discussion section is the most creative part of a scientific paper. This is where, as authors, we present the previous points. So, for example, what the data says. And at the end, we will share the theoretical implications of our study. This is where our freedom as writers truly shine. While we have strict rules for the methods and also for the results sections, the structure I showed for the discussion is actually the reverse of the introduction. What does it mean? It means that we are dealing with an inverted funnel. At first, we talk about the current study findings and relevant literature, and then move on to more general topics. Thus, the mouth of our funnel becomes broader here at the end. Now, let's open a Word file in your materials section entitled Layout. Before anything else, outline the anatomy of the text you're going to write. For example, for the introduction, you should have a structure in your document that indicates what sections the introduction consists of, what the method sections contain, and so on. We'll discuss each of these sections in later parts of the course, but for starting the writing process, you should prepare something like this for yourself. The next step is to fill out these sections with the specific points you want to cover. For example, if you plan to work on facial processing in clinically depressed individuals, enter the topics you studied and you have in mind. So you will write keywords or even short sentences. The next step is to refer back to the sources where you've read about these topics and bring in relevant sentences along with their resources, as I've shown you in this layout file. The following step is to make use of these sentences, either by paraphrasing them or using tools like Elicit, which provides similar sentences with related sources. After completing the sentences, the task is to combine them into coherent paragraphs. Remember to take frequent breaks while doing this. Let your mind wander, go out with friends, and allow time to help you achieve greater mental activity. One important point: each person's PhD journey will follow its own unique path. It is natural to feel a bit nervous when others secure certain funding or positions, but it's important to remember that this PhD is for you. No one else can do it the way you can do. So as much as possible, surround yourself with positive influences and focus on your own progress. Give yourself permission to write messy drafts like this, to make mistakes, and to figure out your argument and research as you go along. Be patient with yourself. Things rarely go perfectly the first time around. By giving yourself this space to grow and improve, you can reduce a lot of unnecessary stress. And of course, always take care of your body while writing. After all, it's not just your mind that needs to stay sharp. See you next, and thank you.